All right, hi. It's a new day. Let's see, one. Florida Railroad, or sorry, Federal Railroad Administration Office of Railroad Safety, Motor Power and Equipment Compliance Manual, July in 2012. All right, Chapter 8. Railroad Locomotive Safety Standards Part 229 Introduction. In 1980, the Federal Railroad Administration revised the section titled 49 of the Code Federal Regulations Part 230 related to non-steam locomotive inspection maintenance standards moved them into Part 229. The following guidelines are used by the federal state inspector when conducting the inspection of locomotives in compliance with federal safety laws. To ensure uniform enforcement of the federal safety laws, it is important that the inspector adhere to all agency enforcement policies conducting the inspection procedure guidance provided in both manuals and the general manual should be observed with determining appropriate corrective actions responsive noncompliance with the Part 229 and other safety defects. When a motive and power and equipment inspector finds a safety defect, the inspector should decide if the defect A is a non-compliant condition based on the requirements of 229, a non-compliant condition based on Title 229. B should be documented by the FRA Form 618096 inspection report. C warrants issues of violation statements of civil penalty. D warrants issue a special notice for repair or special notice is provided for Title 49 CFR Part 216. E should be reported for the railroad unsafe condition. It is not specifically encompassed in the federal regulation. Motor power and equipment inspectors will conduct most of the locomotives inspection either at the facility where periodic annual biannual testing are performed at a location where the locomotives are service prepared for the train service. However, the increase of the locomotive calendar day inspections begin performed railroad transportation department employees away from mechanical facilities. It's important for that motor power and equipment inspectors schedule time to monitor these practices for full compliance with federal safety laws. The locomotive should comply with all the requirements contained in Part 229, be free from any of the safety defects. Keep in mind, a locomotive may be absolutely clean and free from all accumulations of oil, but still in compliance. And Part 229 addressing conditions that create an unsafe working environment and unsafe condition, unsafe locomotive is it does not address the housekeeping practices of a railroad. Any time of the locomotive have recently released from the periodic testing is found non-compliant with the condition of violation should strongly be considered. When an inspector discovers substantive non-compliant condition that he or she believes that the locomotive is unsafe now for service, a special notice is provided for the Title 49 CFR Part 260 may be issued to the railroad. A special notice should be described in the condition or the conditions for which it was issued. Except for the rare circumstances of violation must be submitted with a special notice for repair. Any railroad employee who authorized willful movement of the operation not compliant with the unsafe locomotive has acknowledged that the circumstances could be easy. The personnel responsible for the action the inspector should judge all pertinent facts, determining if it can be documented that the railroad employee can be cited for the willful noncompliance with the federal state life safety laws, providing and advising the railroad employee that he or she will be cited for the willful violation. Inspectors must coordinate and such in accordance with the established procedure. See General Manual. Locomotive safety standards inspection. Upon arrival at the inspection point, the mechanical department personnel are assigned to perform locomotive inspection, testing, repair, and then the inspector should notify the local railroad supervisor at his or her presence. Intention of the railroad will determine whether the employee or the company of the inspector. However, in some instances, it is not always advantageous to notify the railroad of the FRA's presence. Especially if an inspector is related to a complaint or investigation. It's not necessary for the FRA of inspectors to obtain a blue signal protection when condition of any type of the inspection is activity. However, the inspector should be alert that not places themselves in a position where uninspected movement of the equipment subjects them to danger of personnel injury. Railroad representatives accompanying the inspector during the inspection must obtain the blue signal protection if they engage in activities requiring them to work under and between the equipment. Testing operations, any railroad equipment should be performed with the railroad personnel, not FRA inspectors. When practical, inspectors should observe the test of the air brake speed indicators, high voltage ground protection, wheel slip, slide protection. The inspector should point out and observe the conditions, whether the covered regulations or not, that would jeopardize the employee safety and safe operation of equipment. After inspection, advised of the proper railroad representative of the noncompliance condition, the inspector must use the discretion of the evaluation condition of the equipment whether to cite the defects on his or her inspection report. Although the railroad need not to have knowledge of the noncompliant condition of the locomotive to be assessed a civil penalty under the locomotive safety standards. Each inspector is expected to use a sound judgment along with the guidance of the outline and general manual when deciding whether the issuance of the violation report is appropriate under the circumstances. The purpose of the civil penalty is to promote compliance, not punish a railroad for each and every non-compliant condition, regardless of the circumstances. Accordingly, each inspector should limit the issuance of violations to situations where civil penalties will promote compliance if a railroad makes a serious and good faith effort to comply with the standards. The filing of the violation report for an isolated difficulty detect non-compliant condition would serve no valid enforcement purpose. The railroad should be notified for all the cited conditions in a timely manner so that an appropriate corrective action can be taken. Inspectors do not have an option authority to authorize the railroad to use non-compliant locomotives only once a defective condition is cited. The inspection report should be completed with the appropriate copies given to the railroad representative. If the inspection report can only be prepared immediately after the inspection, the only one must complete during the next work period delivered on a forward or railroad representative. Subpart A, Generals, 229.1, Scope. The part describes the federal safety standards for all locomotives except those propelled by steam power. 229.3, Applicability. Except as provided in paragraph B through E of this section, the parts apply to the standard gauge railroads. B. The part that does not apply to railroad operates only the track inside of the installation, which is not part of the general railroad system of the transportation. 2. Rapid transit in the urban area that are not connected with the general railroad system of transportation. C. Paragraphs A and B of the Statute 229.125 do not apply to the Terrier 2 passenger equipment as defined in Statute 238.5 of this chapter. The passenger equipment operating at speeds exceeding 125 miles an hour, not exceeding 150. On or after November 8, 1999, paragraphs A1 and B1 of Statute 229.141 do not apply with the passenger equipment as defined in Statute 238.5 of this chapter unless the equipment is included with the requirements of 238.203, 238.219, and 238.223 of this chapter, operations of Statute 238.201A2 of this chapter. Paragraphs A2 through A4 and B2 through B4 of Statute 229.141 do not apply with the passenger equipment as defined in Statute 238.5 of this chapter is placed in service for the first time on and after September 8, 2000, unless such equipment is excluded from the requirements Statute 238.203 through 238.219 and 238.223 of this chapter, operation of 238.201 of this chapter. Section B1, the inspector should be aware of that if a locomotive of the private industry operates a portion of the general railroad system yards and track, such locomotives must be in compliance with locomotive safety standards, other appropriate regulations. Legal action could be taken against the industrial railroad if their locomotives are not compliant, but the FRA usually holds the general railroad responsible for liable industrial locomotives when permits are to be used on its lines. If industries lease the track and adjacent yard for exclusive use, it may operate over the track as if it were part of the industrial facility. Locomotives do not come over the locomotive standards. See Title 49 CFR 209 Appendix A. Whenever this question as to where the railroad operations equipment fall under the requirements of Part 229, the regional office should be contacted in confirmation. 229.4 Information collection guidance. The part regulates the information collection under Part 229 with the reviewed Office of Budget and Management. No enforcement action is attached to this part. 229 definitions as used in this part. Break means a fracture resulting in complete separation in two parts. Cab means a portion of substructure designed to occupied by the crew operating the locomotive. Carrier means the railroad as determined in this section. Commuter service means the type of railroad service described on the heading of the commuter operations in Title 49 CFR Part 209 Appendix A. Commuter work train is a non-revenue service train used in administration upkeeping service of the commuter railroad. Control cab locomotive means a locomotive without propelling motors with one or more control stands. And controlling remote distributed properly locomotive means locomotive in distributed power that receives the code signal from the lead locomotive consisting of the train, whether to command automatically distributed power systems manually by the locomotive engineer. Alright, your crack. Crack means a fracture without completing separation into the parts except for the casting with the shrink cage. Cracks and hot tears through do not significantly diminish the strength or the members are not considered to be cracked. Cruise control means a device that controls the locomotive power output to obtain target speed. A device that functions only or at below 30 miles per hour is not considered a cruise control for the purpose of this part. Data element means one or more data point value reflections on board training operations at a particular time. Data may be actual pass through the valves. Values may be derived from a combination of values from other sources. Dead locomotive, a locomotive other than the control cab that does not have any traction device supplied tractive power. 2. A control cab locomotive that has locked and unoccupied cab. Distributed power system means a system that provides the control of the number of locomotives dispersed throughout the train of the control locomotive located in the lead position. The system provides the control with the rear-warded locomotive to the command signal originating at the lead locomotive transmitted to the remote rear-warded locomotives. The DMU locomotive means a diesel-powered multiple-unit operated locomotive with one or more propelling motors designing to carry passenger traffic. Electronic air brake means the brake system controlled by the computer which provides the means of the control of the locomotive brakes or the train brakes or both. Evident recorder means a device designed to resist tampering. The monitors record data as detailed in Statute 229-135B over the most recent 48 hours of operation electrical system. The locomotive on which the device is installed, however, the device is designed to resist tampering. The monitors record and specified data on the locomotive in the motion meets the definition and device where it was installed in prior to November 5th, 1993. If its records have been specified for the last 8 hours, the locomotive was in motion. Event recorder memory module means the portion of the event recorder used to retain the recorded data as in detail in Statute 229-135B. High voltage means an electrical potential more than 150 volts. In-service event recorder means an event recorder that was successfully tested and prescribed in Statute 229-27D with subsequent failures to operate as intended and is not, if any, is not actually known the railroad operating locomotive with which it was installed. Lead locomotive means the first locomotive preceding the directive movement. Light locomotive means a locomotive or consists of locomotives that are not attached to any piece of equipment attached only to the caboose. Locomotive means is a piece of track other than the high rail, specialized maintenance, or other similar equipment. With one or more propelling motors designed for the moving of equipment. 2. While one or more propelling motors designed to carry the freight and passenger traffic, or both. Without propelling the bolt, one or more control stands. Mandatory directive means the movement authority to spread restriction affects the railroad operation. Modesty lock means a latch that can be operated in normal manner only within the sanitary compartment that is designed to prevent any entry of any other person within the sanitary compartment in use. A modesty lock may be designed to allow the deliberate forced entry into the event of the emergency. A multiple unit locomotive means a multiple unit operated with electrical. MU locomotive means a multiple unit operated with electrical locomotive. One with one or two more propelling motors designed to carry the freight or passenger traffic. 2 without propelling the motor with one more control strands. Alright, other than short-haul passenger service means the type of the railroad service described under the heading of the short-haul passenger service in Title 49 CFR Part 209 Appendix A. Potable water means water that meets requirements of Title 40 CFR Part 121. CFR Part 4, Title 40 CFR Part 141. The Environmental Protection Agency primary drinking water regulation. Water has been approved for the drinking water purposes and pertinent state and of local authority for having jurisdiction. For the purposes of this water, commercial available bottled drinking water is deemed potable water. Powered axle is an axle equipped with a traction device. Railroad means all forms of non-highway ground transportation that runs on rails or electromagnetic guideways, including commuter or short-haul passenger trains in service in metropolitan suburban area. Two high-speed ground transportation system that connect the metropolitan area with regard to whether they use new technologies not associated with the traditional railroad. Such terms does not include the rapid transit operation within urban that are not connected to the general railroad system of transportation. Remanufactured locomotive means the locomotive rebuilt and refurbished from the previous use or refurbished on frame deck containing further or more than 25% previously used components weighted by the dollar value of the components. Sanitary means lacking any condition in which a significant amount of filth and trash and human waste is present in such a manner that the reasonable person would believe that the condition might constitute a health hazard, or the strong persistent chemical or human waste order sufficient to deter the use of the facility, giving the rise to the responsible concern with respect to the exposure of hazardous fumes. Such conditions include, but are not limited to, a toilet bowl filled with human waste, soiled toilet paper, other products used in the toilet compartment that are presently due to a defective toilet facility that will not flush, otherwise remove, wash, visible human waste, residual floor or toilet seat that is present due to toilet that is overflowed, an accumulation of soiled paper towels, soiled toilet paper on the floor, toilet facility sink, an accumulation of visual dirt, human waste on the floor, toilet facility or sink, strongly persistent chemical, human waste or odors in the compartment. Sanitation compartment means an enclosed compartment of the railroad locomotive that contains a toilet facility for the employee's use. Self-monitoring event order means of an event recorder the ability to monitor its own operation, to display indication with the locomotive operator when any of the data required to be stored or not stored on when or stored do not match the data received from the sensor data collection points. Serious injury means an injury the result and an amputation of an appendage, loss of sight, an eye, fracture of bone, confinement in a hospital for a period of more than 24 consecutive hours. Switching service means a classification of railroad freight and passenger according to the commodity destination assembled for the car or the train movements, changing the position of the car's purpose for loading, unloading, weighing, and placing locomotives and cars for the repair, storage, moving railway equipment in connection with the work surface that does not constitute a train movement. Throttle position means any and all of the discrete output positions indicated by the speed, tractive effort characteristics required by the operator of the locomotive on which the throttle is installed. Together, the discrete output position should cover the entire range of power with possible speed, tractive effort characteristics. The throttle has continuous variable segments. The event recorder should capture 1. The exact level of speed, tractive effort characteristic requested on a scale of 0 to 100% of the output variable. 2. The value converted from a percentage to a comparable 0 to 8 digital signal. Time means either time of the day or lapse time from the arbitrarily determined event as determined by the manufacturer. In either case, the reordered must be able to convert an accurate time of the day to the time zone stated, unless the Greenwich Mean Time or Coordinated Universal Time (UTC). Your toilet facility means the system automatically or command the user removes the human waste placed with the treated, eliminated, retained, no solid or nor treated high liquid waste, therefore permitted to be released into the bowl, urinal, or room, or that prevents harmful discharge of gases, persistent, offensive odors. Transfer service means the freight train that has travels between the point of origin and point of final destination, not exceeding 20 miles, not performing switch servicing. Unsanitary means having any condition in which a significant amount of filth and trash or human waste is present in such a manner that a reasonable person would not believe that the condition might constitute health hazard, strong, persistent chemical human waste odor sufficient to deter the use of the facility, given the reasonable concern with respect to exposure to harm hazardous fumes. Such condition includes, but are not limited to, toilet bowl filled with human waste, soiled toilet paper, other products used in the toilet compartment. The present due to the defective toilet facility that will not flush, otherwise remove the waste with visible human waste residual on the floor. Toilet seat that is present due to the toilet overflow with accumulation of soiled paper towels, toilet paper on the floor, toilet facility sink and accumulation visual dirt, human waste of the floor, toilet facility sinking, strong persistent chemicals, human waste odor compartment. Washing system means a system for the use of the railroad employees to maintain personal cleanliness that includes secured sink, basin water, antibacterial soap, paper towels, antibacterial waterless soap, paper towels, antibacterial moist towelettes, and paper towels, any other combination suitable antibacterial agents. Guidance, Section C. The designation carrier should not be used referring to the Railroad Safety Improvement Act of 1988, or RSIA 88. Did away from the phrases of common carrier that required for the word railroad be inserted with the FRA regulations previously used in the word carrier, the common control carrier. Section D, control cab locomotive. This could either be the passenger coach within the control stand located at one end of the operator can operate a passenger train with the locomotive pushing or pulling the train, or a caboose or car equipped with the remote control equipment that provides for the interface between the remote control transmitter. A locomotive for the remote control operation. Only the portion of the control locomotive cab locomotive has a prudency items listed, but the Part 229 have the compliance with Part 229. Section F, dead locomotive. A dead locomotive can have the diesel engine either idling or shut down. It can supply attractive effort. It must be offline. Section K, locomotive. A high rail locomotive design fine as truck, automobile machinery with retractable flange wheels so that it may be used either on the highway or railroad track. Special maintenance or other similar equipment includes track motors, cranes, derricks, pile driver, rail grinders, ballast cleaners. Periodically, the FRA receives inquiries, equipment requirements for the self-propelled vehicles used in haul revenue freight on the main line. The vehicles include those built by Track Mobile Incorporated, Shuttle Wagon, Mitchell Equipment Incorporated, Brand Railroader. Self-propelled vehicles are used in a variety of railroad functions. When self-propelled vehicles are used only in performance of typical maintenance of the way functions, if they used in the move of the cars, equipment of the confines, or of the repairs facilities, they are considered specialized maintenance equipment and are exempt from the FRA many FRA regulations. When a self-propelled vehicle is used to move the freight over the railroad outside of the limit established for the maintenance of way operations and repair facilities, it will be considered a locomotive and must comply with the applicable regulations, even though these vehicles do not resemble the standard locomotive. The purpose for which they are being used requires compliance with Title 49, Part 223, 229, 231, and 232. The self-propelled vehicles are unique in construction, prudency, and use. Many of these vehicles currently being used have already been modified by the manufacturers as closely construction would permit to bring them into compliance with the federal regulations. The FRA acknowledgments that these equipment has a place in a well-rounded railroad transportation system. The effort of recognizing the unique characteristics of the vehicle, the FRA inspector should exercise the enforcement discretion, good judgment, and analyze the operation whether the self-propelled vehicle are used from the train movements and it seems deemed safety related and cannot meet the special requirements will have to be addressed through the waiver process. The following specifications should be addressed by inspectors for enforcement guidelines. The vehicle glazing material must comply with Part 223. Each self-propelled vehicle shall be inspected with the calendar day when used, and inspection report recorded which shall be completed and described in Statute 229-221. Each self-propelled vehicle receives the periodic inspection described in Section Statute 22923, and all pertinent data entered in the FRA Form 618049A Locomotive Inspection Repair Part Report will be displayed under the transparent cover in a conspicuous place in the cab or vehicle. The vehicle air brakes equipment must be cleaned and tested as condition requires, but not less than frequently than they required in sections 22925, 22927, 22929. The main air reserve must comply with section 22931 regarding either the hammer or hydrostatic testing pre-drilling for the reservoir. The vehicle must meet general set of safety requirements in section 22941, 22943, and 22945. Fuel safety cutoff devices must follow the section of 22993. Vehicles must have a speed indicator that, if operated with the speed exceeds 20 miles per hour in accordance with section 229.117. 229.117. Interior cab noises must comply with the section 229.121. Vehicle headlights must fully functional. If operated with the speeds excess of 20 miles an hour over the one or more public highway grade crossings, must comply with the auxiliary light requirements according to section 229.125. Vehicle must be equipped with a horn according with section 229.129. If operated with an excess of 30 miles an hour while hauling cars, the vehicle must be equipped with a working event recorded in compliance with section 229.135. Switching steps are defined in section 231.30. 4 horizontal handholds shall be secured to the front and the back ends of the vehicle, shall be secured with bolts and other acceptable mechanical fasteners. Section 231.30, the vehicle should have a vertical handhold painted with the contrasting colors scheduled by the bolts and other acceptable fasteners in compliance with the section 231.30. Vehicles must be equipped with automatic couplers to prevent necessity from someone going between the vehicle's car purposes of coupling or uncoupling the compliance with section 231.30. If the conditions warrant, two-way end-of-train device must be used in compliance with section 232.401, 232.409. As with any train movement, the vehicle must be equipped with the braking system permit with the operator's apply release the brakes on the cars being hauled. The brake equipment must be arranged so that the proper air brake leak tested can be conducted as applicable compliance section 232.12, 232.13, motor and power equipment 9871. Despite the fact that a Boro crane is excluded from the definition of locomotive under statute section 229.5.1, locomotive safety standards as a policy, specialized maintenance equipment is not subject to the standards of the Bureau crane, is nevertheless subject to the statutory requirements of the locomotive inspection, particularly the requirements that is safe in the preamble of the final locomotive of the FRA explicitly recognizes the applicable of the Act of stating the FRA will continue to implement the basic statutory safety requirements with respect to working equipment with special notice when appropriated. Title 45, Federal Registry 21093 or Motor and Power Equipment 9825. Section 1, the multiple unit locomotive refers to self-propelled transit commuter services, various large urban centers around the country. The section does not apply with the common vernacular railroad industry, whereby multiple unit locomotives is a generic term and given locomotive that can be coupled and consistent with locomotives in control with a single control location. 229.7 Prohibited Acts. The Locomotive Inspection Act of Title 45 U.S. Standard Code 22 and 34 makes it unlawful for any carrier to use permit to be based on his line any locomotive unless the entire locomotive in its appurtenances, 1, any proper condition safety operated with the service which they are put with unnecessary peril, life, or limb, 2, have been inspected, tested as required as part B, as any person, any type of the covered in Title 1 U.S. Standard Code 1 includes but not limited to the following: a railroad manager, supervisor, official, other employee, agent, railroad, or other manufacturer, leaser, or lesser, railroad equipment tracker, facility independent contractor, contractor providing good service to the railroad employee, any employee such as manufacturer, leaser, lesser or leaser independent contractor who has violated the requirements of the part of the Locomotive Inspection Act causes the violation of such requirements and subject to civil penalty of at least $500, not more than $11,000 per violation, except for the penalties may be assessed against the individual. Only willful violations where grossly negligent, violent violation pattern, repeated violations have created imminent hazard of death, injury, and person has caused the death and injury. Penalty not exceeding $22,000 per violation may be assessed. Each day of violation continues shall constitute a separate offense. See Appendix B of this part for a statement of agency civil penalty policy. Guidance, paragraph A. The section regulatory codification, general statutory language previously contained in the Locomotive Inspection Act recodified in Title 49 U.S. Standard Code Statute 20701. This section also only be cited with the defective condition of locomotive appurtenances and or disclosed on the items not specifically covered by other provisions contained in Statute 229. For example, the provision should be used to report the defective appurtenances such as a warning bell and alert equipment. The defective equipment associated with the remote control locomotive operation should be addressed under this section. The remote control transmitter, when operating a locomotive in remote mode, becomes an appurtenancy to the locomotive and is subject to the provision of the locomotive. Any lights added to the remote control locomotive that indicate the locomotive is operating by the remote control mode is an appurtenancy. Therefore, if any of the equipment associated with the remote control locomotive operation is found defective at any time during the remote mode operation, appropriate enforcement actions should be taken. The inspector may consider filing a violation under the section following the evidence. 1. The locomotive is not safe or in proper condition for the service which it may be placed. 2. The involved condition endangers the railroad personnel and other public, exposing unnecessary peril of life or limb. If the inspector seeks a violation under the provision, the inspector must fully describe the defective part, and the appurtenancy must fully explain how the defective part of the appurtenancy endangers safely a of the general public. This section should be not cited with this condition of the defective appurtenancy, especially as addressed in another provision contained in Part 229. More specific provisions should be used. Paragraph B of this section recognizes the FRA ability to use the individual liability as an enforcement tool for the circumstances where the railroad employee willfully allows the use of the locomotive with non-compliant condition covered by this part. Inspectors must exercise care in the circumstances, ensuring that all concerns, guidelines discussed Chapter 3 of this manual, Appendix A of the Title 49 CFR 209, are followed and addressed by pursuing enforcement action against the individual. Statute 229.9, movement of non-compliant locomotives. A, except as provided in B and C in Statute 229.125H, a locomotive with one or more conditions is not compliant with the part may be moved only as a light locomotive or dead locomotive after the carrier has complied with the following. 1. A qualified person shall determine if it's safe to move the locomotive to the maximum speed of the restrictions necessary for safe conduct of the movement. Then 2, the engineer in charge with the movement of the locomotive shall be notified in writing and inform all other crew members of the cab in presence of the non-compliant locomotive maximum speed of the restriction determined under the paragraph A1-2 of the section. 2, a copy of the tag described in A3 of the section may be used to provide the notification paragraph required in paragraph A2-1 of this section. 3, a tab bearing the words non-compliant locomotive contains the following information shall serially attach to the control stand on each multiple unit control cab locomotive to the isolating switch near the engine to start switching on every other type of locomotive. 1. The locomotive number. 2. The name of the inspector carrier. 3. The inspection location date. 4. The nature of each defect. 5. The movement of restrictions, if any. 6. The destination. And 7. The signature of the person making determinations required by this paragraph. B. A locomotive that develops a non-compliant condition en route with it may continue to utilize the propelling motors if requirements of paragraph A are otherwise fully met until the earlier of the next calendar day inspection. The nearest forward point where the repairs necessary to bring into the compliance can be made. C. A non-compliant locomotive may be moved light dead weight with a yard of speed not exceeding 10 miles per hour without meeting the requirements of the paragraph A of this section. If the movement is solely for the purpose of repair, the carrier responsible to ensure the movement may be safely made. D. A lead locomotive may continue its use of the following a calendar day inspection as control locomotive at the head of the train and locomotive consists. The locomotive does not cease. The locomotive becomes a propelling motor, and motors in the operative becomes in control. Jumper cables are not connected. F. Nothing in section other authorizes the movement of locomotive subject to the special notice of the repair, unless the movement is made in accordance with the restrictions contained in the special notice. G. Paragraph A, B, and C of this section shall not apply to sanitation conditions covered by Statute 229, 137, 139, 229, 137, and 139 are set forth specific requirements for movement and repair of locomotives' defective sanitation compartments. Guidance. Section A. When non-compliant conditions under the Part 229 is found in either railroad inspector of the motor power and equipment, except as provided with the paragraphs B and C, the railroad may only move the locomotive as a light locomotive, dead locomotive under what the conditions qualified person the railroad deemed suitable for the safety of the movement, except as provided in paragraph B and C. The locomotive may be moved in any location railroad designates and have to compliance with the FRA inspector believes the movement of the locomotive by the railroad under the section constitute immediately unsafe situations such as a possible derailment. A special notice for repair of the FRA Form 6188 may be issued, effectively remove the locomotive from service. In addition, with describing immediate unsafe condition, the inspector must also note that the movement of the restrictions or lack, or e.g. speed or distance, as proposed by the railroad would create an additional unsafe problem. The inspector should never dictate in railroad conditions for the movement of any non-compliant locomotives unless the condition is deplorable. The movement at any speed would create an unsafe condition as a restriction for the railroad responsibility. Section B allows for the continued locomotive to develop an en route non-compliant condition for the earlier and one next calendar day inspection. Nearest forward point where the repairs necessary to bring the into compliance are going to be made. Using the locomotive under the provisions permitted with the requirements of Statute 229A. 229.9A are fully met, which means the non-compliant tag, this is properly filled out, or must be in the cab or non-compliant locomotive. If the non-compliant condition can be brought into compliance, shifting the position of the locomotive and consisting of a non-compliant condition shall be rectified, doing so in the next forward location where it can be accomplished. This could be a siding in the siding or Y, any location where the physical possibility of repositioning the locomotive railroad employee is performing this task so that it does not endanger the safety of employees, locomotive of the trains. This location should be construed and designated as a repair point. Section A and 1 requires the qualified person shall determine this is a safe but move the locomotive to the maximum speed of the restriction necessary for to safely conduct the movement. Difficulty in the interpretation and enforcement. Section 229.9 arises as the section does not provide guidance with respect to the criteria for the use of the qualified as a person to make a determination required above. The decision to continue the use of non-compliant locomotive in some cases are being made by the person not qualified to make the decision. A person qualified to perform a daily inspection may not necessarily possess the qualifications to make the determination that it's safe to move the defective locomotive. The qualified person must have demonstrated to a railroad a minimum not that the knowledge and ability to inspect locomotives to provide with the recommendation regarding the criteria listed in Section A. This does not imply that the qualified person must have intimately knowledge of the experience and with all the components of the function of the locomotive. Additionally, there are very leveling qualifying persons. Example, the journeyman electrician may not have necessary knowledge to safety recommendations concerning a locomotive running gear. However, the person qualified to address the problems associated with electrical control apparatus. Section 240.123 requires that each of the railroad provided with the initial continuing education of the certified locomotive engineers to ensure that each of the engineer maintains the knowledge and skills and the ability to respect among the areas mechanical condition of the equipment and in such a locomotive is considered qualified to provide safety recommendations concerning certain en route non-compliant conditions. Normally, these conditions are limited to those that are evaluated during the daily inspection required. Section 2 Statute 229.21, such as details and indicators of the cab seats, air brake wipers, alter, or malfunction of the locomotive engineering would be expected to identify the certain obvious mechanical problems such as a major wheel defect or some running gear problems. However, the engineer would not be expected to properly assess the safety implications of continually move for the locomotive for the most mechanical defects. In these cases, the recommendation regarding the continued safe movement of the non-compliance locomotive in accordance with the statute 229-9A1 needed not to be made by personnel that is not need to be made by personnel that is more qualified, such as a mechanical department employee. These recommendations may be based on telephone radio conservation between the energy engineer and more qualified individual. Non-compliance with the condition can be resolved, but solely with voice communication. A qualified individual must conduct a physical on-site inspection and identify all appropriate restrictions for continued safe movement of the locomotive. While it is in the transportation operation, the department to control the daily operation of the railroad, operating personnel may not possess the qualification, technical expertise to make safety recommendations regarding the non-compliance locomotive. The investigation as an issue involving the enforcement of the statute 229-9 motor and power and equipment must carefully examine the qualification of the individual who made the safety recommendations to determine the railroad acted in compliance with the regulations. Certain non-compliant conditions requiring locomotives to be removed from the lead position in the first available location must not be required for them to be moved from the service. Experience such as such conditions, but are not limited to speed indicator, headlights, cab windows, and the audible warning devices. The conditions such as these exist. The railroad must, in order to be compliant with, remove the locomotive from the lead position. Inspector must exercise the sound judgment. For example, the defective cab heater during the warm weather would not necessitate removal of locomotive for that leading of the control position. In the interest of the safety, when a locomotive is repositioned from the lead position to correct non-compliant condition, the non-compliant locomotive tag should remain attached to the locomotive until its repaired is made. Section 229-9, a silent in the repair location question depends on a powerful penalty built-in regulation convincing the railroad to maintain the locomotive fleet. Movement of a light or dead locomotive not only limits the power available, but adds tonnage to the train. When a motive, power, and equipment inspector has knowledge the railroad permits the locomotive that developed a non-compliant condition en route to continue service past mechanical facilities and where repairs can be made, he or she would investigate to determine when the railroad complying with them requires Section 8. If the inspectors are made aware of the non-compliant locomotives was moved beyond the forward repair location of the previously demonstrated with the ability to effect the repair's non-compliant condition, he or she ensures that such a locomotive would no longer be used in propelling lead locomotive with the non-implementation. Subsection B. Each of the repair location may be capable of repairing all in and route non-compliant conditions that can occur. Section 229-9 allows railroads to become moving non-compliant locomotives to the light dead locomotive into a much more distant repair point of the choice, provided that it meets all other requirements. Statute 229-9. Such action does not endanger the safety employment locomotive in the trains. Section 229 only permits the movement of the non-compliant locomotive that departs. The 229 is effective statute. Nothing in 229-9 authorizes the movements of a locomotive with a power breaker safety appliance defect. Such locomotives can be only moved under the provisions of Section 2030 the Public Law 103-272, July 5, 1994, and or Power Braking Regulations of Motor Power and Equipment 9850. If it is responsible for the railroad to ensure that the locomotive that is moved with non-compliant defective in accordance with the applicable law, there is no any doubt the railroad should contract the FRA that move required with the railroad submit the one-time movement authority. See Chapter 2. Subsection D restricts the use of the dead locomotive controlling locomotive following the calendar day inspection. If a non-compliant condition occurs in the route that renders locomotive dead and carry and continue the control locomotive continues to do until the daily inspection is performed. The intent is restriction to ensure the crew members are not permitted to acquire or occupy the cab non-compliant locomotive over the extended period of time. Section E means the locomotive is a locomotive that at all times must be in full compliance with the service or tagged as required in Statute 229A. 229.11 Locomotive Identification. The letter F shall be legibly shown on each side of every locomotive near the end of the identifying purposes will be known as the front end. The locomotive numbers shall be displayed as clearly legible numbers on each side of each locomotive. Guidance. If vandals have painted their graffiti on the locomotive observed with the identification markers, the inspector should point the defect out of the railroad using appropriate discretion and general compliance. The railroad initiated does not have to be clearly legible on the locomotive. The Regulation does not require railroad initials, only a number. The F is very important to remote control locomotive operations. 219-113 controlling locomotives. Except when locomotives is moved in accordance with statute 229, whenever the two or more locomotives are coupled in multiple control of the propulsion system, the standards, the power brake system of each locomotive shall respond to the control from the cab of the controlling locomotive. If the dynamic braking of the regenerative brake system is in use, the portion of the system is used shall respond to the control from the cab of the control locomotive. And that we're on page 150, so I'm going to pause it and pick a break.